I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We met in college, got married young, and at first everything seemed normal, or so I thought. She had a sharp tongue and a bitchy attitude sometimes, but I always chalked that up to her being fiercely independent. Still, looking back, there were little signs I ignored. She was a little too controlling sometimes, always checking my phone when I wasn't looking, accusing me of cheating even when I wasn't doing anything wrong. I told myself she was just insecure or maybe paranoid because of her own past relationships. At the start, I believed she was just stressed with her job, which was demanding but rewarding. She worked as a marketing executive, and I was running my own small business. We'd often have arguments over money, time, and her constant need to be the center of attention at every social event. She loved throwing parties, raising her profile, and making sure everyone knew how successful she was. But then, things started to change. I noticed her phone was glued to her hand more often, and she was secretive about her social media activity, deleting messages, acting cagey when I'd ask about who she was talking to. She started making excuses, saying I was being paranoid, that I didn't trust her. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. One night, I decided to follow her after she left for one of those fundraising dinners she loved to attend. She always went with a group of friends, but that night she left early saying she had a headache. I was suspicious, so I waited a little while, then decided to check her social media. I found her chatting with someone named Jesse, a guy I'd heard her mention once or twice, but I never thought much about it. The messages weren't innocent. They were flirty, sometimes explicit. She was talking about how hot Jesse's son was, how she couldn't stop thinking about him. I was stunned. Jesse's son, Chase, was a young guy, barely out of college. I'd seen pictures of him at events she'd dragged me to, but I never thought she'd be doing more than just flirting. Then I remembered that last fundraiser she went to. I pulled up the security footage from the event. At first, I was just doing it out of curiosity, but then I saw something that made my blood turn cold. During the event, she was talking to Jesse's son, but it wasn't just small talk. They slipped away from the crowd, went into a quieter corner of the venue, and spent a good 15 minutes alone. The footage was grainy, but it was enough. I saw her leaning into him, her hand on his thigh, whispering in his ear. That's when it hit me: my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was cheating on me with a kid. A guy who's the son of a donor we'd been courting for months, and someone I considered a friend of sorts. It was all a lie. She had been pretending to be this devoted wife, but behind my back she was screwing around with Jesse's kid during fundraising events I'd been attending, thinking I'd never find out. It wasn't just an affair. It was betrayal that cut so deep I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I kept watching the footage, then looked through her messages again. She lied about going to bed early that night, said she was too tired to even answer my texts. Meanwhile, she was sneaking off with Jesse's son, literally hiding her betrayal from me. The worst part, she's so bitchy and manipulative that she actually tried to lie her way out of it when I confronted her. Said I was imagining things, that Jesse's son was just a friend, that I was being paranoid. She even had the nerve to call me insecure and accuse me of projecting my own issues onto her. I was furious, hurt, and honestly, I felt completely stupid for trusting her this long. I don't even know how I managed to keep my composure that night. I just wanted to break everything and scream at her, but I stayed calm. The calmness was worse, I think, because she didn't see the pain she caused. She kept lying, telling me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was jealous of some kid. But I knew the truth now, and it was a game changer. I realized I was looking at a woman who had no regard for me or our marriage, a woman capable of lying about everything, including her own feelings. In that moment, I knew I had two choices: confront her and risk losing everything, or walk away and rebuild my life from the ashes of this betrayal. Honestly, I wasn't sure I could do either at first. My mind was spinning, my heart pounding, and I felt so betrayed I couldn't breathe. The trust was shattered. I felt like I was staring into a hole I'd never climb out of. But I knew deep down I couldn't stay with someone who'd do this to me. Not after seeing all the proof, not after realizing I'd been so blind. That's where I am now. Still trying to process everything, still figuring out my next move. But I know one thing for sure. I'm done being the fool in this story. I'll have to decide soon whether I fight for a marriage that's broken beyond repair or walk away and start over. Either way, I never thought I'd feel this betrayed, this humiliated in my own marriage. But I do. And I'm here, trying to get some advice and just put this out there because maybe hearing from others who have been through something similar will help me figure out what to do next. After I watched that footage, everything changed. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying her sneaky smile, her fake tears when she lied about going to bed early, the way she leaned into Jesse's son like she was starving for some kind of thrill. It was like I'd been hit with a ton of bricks, and each brick was a new revelation about how little I really knew her. I started questioning every moment we'd shared. All her bitchy comments, her sharp words when I caught her checking her phone, her little side eyes when I was around. I was furious, but more than that, I was devastated. How could she do this? How could she betray me with some kid from the donor's family? That was the thing that made me feel sick. It wasn't just some casual affair. It was a calculated betrayal during my own fundraising events when I was supposed to be supporting her, supporting us. Instead, she was off with Jesse's son, probably laughing at me, thinking I'd never find out. The next morning, I couldn't keep it bottled up. I decided I had to confront her face to face, no matter how ugly it got. I waited for her to come home from work, trying to think of the best way to do this. I didn't want to yell, but I knew I couldn't just ignore what I saw. When she finally came in the door, I looked her right in her bitchy eyes and told her I knew everything. That I had seen the footage, read her messages, and I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. She blinked, then smirked at me like I was some idiot who just didn't get it. "Mike, you don't know what you're talking about," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. "You're overreacting. I was just talking to Jesse's son, nothing more. You're so insecure, it's pathetic." That was her usual line, blame me, accuse me of being paranoid, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I laid out the evidence point by point, and she started to get defensive, then angry. "Oh, so now you're spying on me." "That's real mature, Mike," she snapped. "You're just jealous because I don't fawn over you like some pathetic housewife. I have needs too, you know. And Jesse's son. Yeah, I was talking to him. He's a handsome guy. Maybe you should try being a little more interesting instead of acting like some possessive jerk." That's when I lost it. I told her she was disgusting, that I'd never seen such a manipulative bitch in my life, and she just kept lying, acting like she hadn't done anything wrong. She said I was crazy, that I was imagining it all, that I was just insecure because I feared losing her. And I felt a wave of rage I'd never known before. The kind where your blood boils and every part of you just wants to scream and break things. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about her lying to my face, pretending she loved me while secretly screwing around with a kid I considered a friend, maybe even a little more than that. I told her she needed to pack her bags and leave, that I couldn't be with someone who could do this. She just sneered and said I was overreacting, that she'd never cheat on me, that I was just a jealous fool. That was the moment I realized I needed to step back and think about my next move. I wasn't about to just forgive this, hell no. But I also knew deep down I wasn't going to be the guy who just walks away without some kind of payback. She lied, betrayed, and humiliated me. I had to make her regret it. So I started planning. Not a quick, emotional reaction. I needed something smarter. Something that would hit her where it hurt, but also give me some justice. I started digging into her phone history, her emails, anything that might give me more leverage. I wasn't planning to just leave her broken and unscathed. I wanted to make sure she knew she lost something real, that her lies had consequences. For now, I kept quiet outside of telling her I knew the truth. I played it cool, like I was still trying to figure things out, but inside I was already crafting my revenge. I knew her personality enough to know she was bitchy, manipulative, and only cared about saving her own skin. That's what I would use against her. The more she lied, the more. My resolve hardened. I'd make her regret every sneaky word she'd spoken with Jesse's son, every fake smile, every betrayal. The thing that keeps running through my head is how she thought she could get away with it, how she thought I'd never find out. And now that I know, I won't be the one left looking like the fool. I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe I'll leave, maybe I'll stay and make her pay. All I do know is that I'll never trust her again, and I'll never forget what she did. That's the truth, plain and simple. After I confronted Lisa, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. She acted like nothing had changed, still throwing her bitchy attitude around, still denying everything. The more she lied, the more I saw through her fake smile. And honestly, I started planning my next move. I wasn't just gonna walk away without making her squirm, but I also had to be smart about it. I couldn't let her spin some story that made her look like the victim. Over the next couple of days, I kept my cool, but I was gathering everything I could. I secretly installed a keylogger on her phone, just enough to see her messages and calls. I also reached out to some people I knew at the fundraising events, just to get a clearer picture of her and Jesse's son's meetings. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting bitchy, lying, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I was already turning her lies against her. Then something unexpected happened. Jesse's son, Chase, called me out of the blue. At first, I thought maybe he'd heard I knew, or maybe he was trying to deny everything. But instead, he admitted it. Said Lisa had been pushing him to meet up during those events, said she was hungry for some excitement, and that she wanted to feel alive again. I couldn't believe it. Here's this kid, barely out of college, spilling all her secrets. I guess she thought she could keep this hidden forever, but she'd underestimated how far I'd go to find out the truth. Chase told me that Lisa had called him several times, told him she was frustrated with me, that I was boring and controlling, and that she needed something more exciting. He sounded disgusted, honestly. Told me she had been pushing him to meet her secretly to take things further. It was all out in the open now. I felt a mix of anger, disgust, and pain. My wife, the woman I loved, was out there scheming with a kid who I had once considered a friend of sorts. The betrayal was so deep it made me question everything. I decided I had to get more evidence. I set up a meeting with a private investigator I knew. I told him to follow her, see where she went, who she met. Meanwhile, I started going through her emails again, trying to find more proof of her lying and scheming. It was like peeling an onion. Every layer revealed more deception. I found a series of texts between her and Jesse's son, planning their next meetup, talking about how they'd keep it secret from me. I couldn't believe how manipulative she'd become. She was deliberately hiding her affair, trying to keep her little secret life intact while I was clueless. And then, the shock hit me hard. I found a message from Lisa telling Jesse's son she was ready to leave everything behind if it meant they could be together. I felt my stomach turn. How much more did I not know? How long had she been doing this? All those nights she accused me of being paranoid when she was the one sneaking around, lying, cheating. It was a sickening feeling, realizing how completely she'd betrayed my trust. I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I was nearing the point of just blowing everything up, confronting her in front of everyone, making sure she knew I had all her secrets exposed. But I also knew I needed to be strategic. I couldn't just go off half-cocked. I wanted her to feel the pain of her own lies, to see her own manipulation reflected back at her. That's when I started assembling everything, screenshots, recorded calls, even some of her own words. I wanted her to understand that I was serious, that I'd catch her in her own web of lies. I started planning how I'd confront her again, this time with a full arsenal of evidence. I knew she'd scramble, try to deny, try to turn the tables, but I was ready. The worst part: I still loved her, or at least I thought I did before all this. Now I wasn't sure what love or loyalty even meant anymore. All I knew was that I was not going to be the fool who gets played. I'd find a way to make her pay for what she did, even if it meant destroying everything we had. At this point, I was just waiting for the right moment, waiting to catch her in the act or for her to slip up again. Then I'd finally have the proof I needed to confront her once and for all. The plan was coming together, and honestly, I felt like I was finally getting some control back in this chaos. But I also knew that once I unleashed everything, there'd be no going back. My life, my marriage, everything was on the line. and I was starting to realize that some betrayals cut so deep, they can't be fixed. The days that followed felt like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I thought about Lisa, her bitchy smirk, her lies, I got angrier. I kept my head down, pretending to go along with her. But inside, I was assembling a case that would blow her entire world apart. I had the evidence now, the screenshots of her messages, Chase's confession, the secret plans they'd made. I even had a few recordings of her voice when she was talking about leaving everything behind just to be with him. I knew I couldn't confront her without being prepared. If I was going to call her out, I needed everything lined up perfectly. I reached out to that private investigator I'd hired, and he confirmed what I suspected. She'd been meeting Chase at a quiet hotel near our house. It was a small, nondescript place, perfect for sneaking around. I told him to keep watch, gather more details if possible, but to wait for my signal. I wasn't rushing into anything. I wanted her caught red-handed, her own lies turning against her. Meanwhile, Lisa was still acting like everything was fine. She'd throw her bitchy comments at me, calling me insecure, saying I was paranoid and jealous. Honestly, I was starting to see her for what she really was, a manipulative, lying bitch who thought she could do whatever she wanted and get away. With it, she'd even had the audacity to accuse me of being the one cheating, trying to turn things around as if it was all in my head. But I had enough proof to shut her up, and I was just waiting for the perfect moment to drop the bomb. One evening, I got a message from the investigator. He had surveillance footage, Lisa leaving the hotel with Chase early that morning. They'd been caught on camera, walking out together, looking guilty as hell. I watched the footage more times than I could count. Her bitchy attitude melted away when she thought no one was watching. She looked nervous, sneaking out, trying to hide her face. Chase looked just as guilty, avoiding the camera, pretending he wasn't involved. That was it. I had everything I needed. That night I decided to confront her. I'd waited long enough. I sat her down in the living room, laid out all the evidence on the table, the recordings, the texts, the hotel footage. She stared at me, her bitchy smirk gone, her eyes wide with panic. She tried to deny it again, said I was crazy, that I was making it up, that Jesse's son was just a friend. I didn't listen. I told her she had no choice but to admit everything, that I knew she'd been cheating on me for months, sneaking around during our supposed date nights, lying to my face. She started crying, but it was a fake cry, a desperate attempt to save her own skin. When she finally broke down, she blurted out some of the most pathetic lies I'd ever heard. Said she was lonely, that I'd been neglecting her, that Chase had just been a distraction. Yeah, right, as if that made any difference. I looked at her with disgust, feeling a strange mixture of heartbreak and anger. I'd spent years building our life together, and she threw it all away for some younger, dumber kid. I told her I was done, that I couldn't stay with someone who'd betray me like this, that I'd be leaving her, and she could figure out how to live with the damage she caused. Her bitchy attitude flared up again, and she started screaming at me, calling me all kinds of names. But I was beyond caring. I just wanted her gone, to get away from her lies and manipulations. I felt like I was finally free, but also broken. She shattered everything I believed in. The next day, I started packing some of my things. I knew I couldn't stay in that house anymore, not with her around. I didn't want to be near her or hear her bitchy voice anymore. I moved into a friend's place for a while, just to get some space. I also contacted a lawyer to figure out the divorce process. Honestly, I'd never felt so hurt and betrayed in my life. All those years I thought I knew her, turns out, she's just a lying, manipulative bitch who only cared about her own pleasure. She thought she could screw around and lie her way out of it, but I had her cornered now. I spend most of my days replaying everything, trying to process how I got here. How the woman I loved could be so cruel, so selfish. It's a sickening feeling, knowing she was out there, secretly screwing around with a kid young enough to be her son, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I know I'll get through this, but it's going to take time. For now, all I can do is focus on myself, rebuild what I can, and make sure she suffers a little for what she's done. Not in some petty revenge way, just enough to remind her that betrayal has consequences. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. Moving out, sorting through everything, I felt like I was waking up from a nightmare I couldn't quite shake. For days, I kept replaying her lies, her sneaky calls, her fake tears. That bitchy smile she'd put on when she was caught trying to deny everything, that's what haunted me the most. It was like I'd been living with a lie that I now had proof of, and that proof was like a knife twisting in my gut. I spent hours talking to my lawyer, trying to figure out the best way to handle the divorce. I wasn't interested in fighting her for every penny. I just wanted to be done with her, to get her out of my life for good. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much damage she'd really done. It wasn't just the affair, it was the years of manipulation, the lies, the way she played me like a fool. She thought she'd get away with it, but I had everything on tape, every message, every secret meeting. She'd underestimated me, and now she was paying the price. Meanwhile, I also started seeing a therapist. I knew I needed to process all this to get some clarity. Honestly, I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. Every time I thought about her bitchy attitude, the way she'd lie to my face, I felt this mix of anger and sadness. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, how I missed all the signs. But deep down, I knew I'd done everything I could to make it work. She just didn't want to be honest, didn't want to be faithful. One night, I finally sat her down for one last talk. I told her I was done, that I couldn't trust her anymore. I laid out everything I had, proof, recordings, her own words, and told her she'd ruined everything. She just sneered and called me insecure, accused me of spying on her because I was jealous. That was her usual bullshit. I told her she could stay and fight me in court, or she could just leave and never come back. She chose the latter, packed her bags, and left that night. And honestly, I felt a mixture of relief and emptiness. Part of me hated her for what she did, but part of me also mourned the woman I thought I knew. I kept thinking about all the times she'd lied, the moments she'd betrayed me, and I realized I'd been a fool for so long. She was just a manipulative, bitchy woman who only cared about herself. I guess I knew that deep down, but I didn't want to admit it. Now I had no choice. The truth was staring me in the face, and I had to face the reality. Since she left, I've been trying to rebuild my life. I've been working more, spending time with friends, and focusing on myself. It's not easy. Every day there's a new flash of anger, a new wave of sadness. But I know I can't stay stuck in this dark place forever. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, especially when it comes from someone you loved and trusted. That bitchy attitude she had, her constant lying, those aren't just character flaws. They're a sign of how little she valued me. Looking back, I realize I should have seen the signs, but I was blinded by love, or maybe just hope. Now, I see her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself. The biggest lesson I've learned is that trust is fragile, and that some people will lie and cheat without remorse. I'm not perfect, but I refuse to let her take away my self-respect and dignity. I'll rebuild, maybe even find someone who's worth trusting, but I'll never forget what she did. That's the harsh truth. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's that betrayal hurts like hell, but you've got to stand up and take control of your life again. Don't let someone like her define you or make you feel small. I may be hurt, but I'm also stronger now. And one day, I'll look back at this and realize that despite everything, I survived. That's what really matters. It's been a few weeks since she left, and honestly, I'm still trying to put all the pieces together in my head. Some nights I lie awake, replaying every moment, every lie, every betrayal, feeling like I've been punched in the gut all over again. But even through the pain, I know I'm starting to see things clearer. That bitchy attitude she carried, her constant lying, her manipulative ways, they all make sense now. I see her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. This whole experience has shattered a lot of illusions I had about love and trust. I used to believe that if I loved someone hard enough, they'd never betray me. Turns out that wasn't true. Some people are just wired differently. They lie, cheat, manipulate, and then act like everything's normal. But I've realized something else. I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. I survived her betrayal, and I'll continue to survive even if it hurts every single day. I've been focusing on myself now, rebuilding my confidence, rediscovering what makes me happy. I've started working out more, reconnecting with old friends, and even taking up some new hobbies I'd abandoned. It's not easy. There are moments when the pain feels overwhelming, when I wonder if I'll ever trust again. But I tell myself that I deserve better. I deserve someone who's honest, who respects me, who doesn't cheat behind my back during fundraising events of all things. Looking back, I think the worst part wasn't just the cheating. It was the lies, her bitchy, manipulative lies that made me doubt myself, made me question everything I believed in. But now I see her for what she was, a woman who used her charm and bitchy attitude to hide her insecurities, a woman who thought she could manipulate everyone around her, including me. Now I know that I can't change her, but I can change how I react to her. I can take control of my own life and move forward. And I will. I've started seeing a new therapist, someone who's helping me process all this. I know I'll get through it. Maybe I'll never fully forget what she did, but I will learn to forgive myself for trusting her for so long. I'll rebuild my life, piece by piece, and I'll find someone who's worth my time and trust. That's the real lesson I've learned. Not everyone is worth the pain, and sometimes you have to cut ties to save yourself. So, to anyone going through betrayal like this, keep fighting. Don't let her lie or manipulate her way into your head. You're better than that. You deserve honesty and respect. And once you face the truth, even if it hurts like hell, you'll realize that you're stronger than your pain. That's what I'm holding on to now. The future might be uncertain, but I know I'm ready to move past this, stronger and wiser. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters.